Continuing from where we left last time, this time we will attempt to cover capture of urban areas. First, understanding offensive operations in urban setting, then tactics used by Russians in Grozny, and lastly, present operations. First, a word about urban warfare by conventional forces. The foremost aim is capturing by psychological paralysis, which is created by creating immense pressure on the minds of leadership and to save civilian casualties. This is achieved by show of force, massive fire assaults on military targets. Simultaneously, isolation is being carried out with a view to not allow ingress and egress of military personnel. Basically, not allowing mechanized forces, heli-borne forces, to come to the aid of these built-up areas. As also, in case the built-up area is weaker, enemy should not be allowed to get out of it and destroy it there. This is also created by information vacuum and increased disorientation of enemy, separate military from civilian population, precision bombing campaign through accurate missile RT air. Tanks are used in direct firing mode on the outskirts. Recce in force carried out with a view to gain information and foothold. Snipers are used to take out the commanders. Heliborne forces, saboteurs, militias are used to capture critical battle spaces. And thereafter, there is investment which is carried out, which is an overlapping operation with isolation, in which noose is tightened. Essential supplies are cut, firm base is established with a complete fan to keep the defender guessing. Civilian casualties are acceptable at this stage for need for success. And finally, the capture, which is preceded by a precision air artillery fire, which may be prolonged in case of Russians just before clearance. Tanks supported by infantry move in. So basically, infantry try and move in an innovative way from rooftop to rooftop, or there are various ways of trying to clear a house, and tanks thereafter are moved in to support them. Use of napalm, modern oxygen denuting weapons, especially in tunnels and sewerage systems, are used. Rocket launchers are used. Roadblocks established to eliminate fleeing enemy. And post-capture reorganization carried out, weapon distribution, ammunition distribution, logistics tied up, and defenses are occupied. In this diagram, I have tried to show how in Mariupol they would be carrying out their operations. Now, initially, they have isolated the town by capturing smaller villages on the outskirts, far away from the built up area of Mariupol, as also dispersing the forces in such a manner that from inside nothing goes out. Similarly, from outside nothing comes in. Now, it's not an easy thing to be in this situation. There's a large chance, there are a large amount of forces required to actually cover up the gaps. There are large gaps. Frontage, if you see, is very big, and those gaps are covered by patrolling. And in a determined enemy is able to break through this isolated position. So it is a very initial stage of trying to put pressure on the town. The inner circle you can see is investment position. As the forces now closes in, the frontage reduces, chances of escape of enemy reduces. Artillery fire, air, and other forces are now trying to reduce the inner built up area, which is a very difficult battle, to as easy as it can become. You can see those arrows which are mm, showing the Rakin force going on all around. Out of these, some Rakin force are actually trying to build a firm base. So they will be little power, they will be more oriented. However, as of now, the offensive force is not trying to show its force from where it will come. So they are very ambiguous about everything. Then you can see there is a firm base which has been created in the south west. Now, I assume that for Russian forces, creating a southwest firm base should be okay because they have a dominant force in the sea, and their ships should be dominating this area which is in the south. They might have tried to straightway go into the barren patch which is there in the center of the town, and probably might have tried to capture this in the initial stages, might have failed. But sea being on south means, and having a supremacy of forces for the naval forces, I'm sure they must have used the naval forces in such a manner that firm base is achieved with the help of the forces either in the west or in the east. Most probably from the west, because the western forces have been pushing on towards east, whereas the forces which were in those enclaves were not able to break through because of strong Ukrainian resistance there. This is an assumption, and we'll see how the battle progresses. But this is what I want to show you how investment and capture is going to take place. So you see the Rakhine force, you see a firm base being established, you see how an isolating force is, organized, and how an investment takes place. Let us see how Russians have operated in. First, we will see model of Grozny, and Chechens were very well prepared. They had prepared a very good defensive system. They had got that fierce resistance in them, familiar with the city. The city had been turned into a fortress. Had established a very good command and control system. Used interconnected firing positions and maneuver. Well-connected trenches, anti-tank ditches had been prepared. They organized bunkers just behind the apartments and laid mines throughout the city. Sniper nests had been established in the high-rise buildings, prepared escape routes, and used booby traps innovatively. The ground floor windows and doors were usually boarded up or mined, making it impossible for Russians to walk into a building. They used to move very well. Well organized small groups of not more than 15 fighters moved freely about Grozny using city's sewer network and tunnels. And they used to even sneak behind Russian lines, capture villages, and attack unsuspecting soldiers. Counterattack, isolating up follow forces, logistics, is to break out and escape once overwhelmed militarily. Russians, on the other hand, slowly advanced, carried out 2 weeks of shelling, bombing before a foothold was established. Majority of the city's civilian population fled following the missile attacks early in the war. This left the open battlefield open. Civilians left behind suffered brutally. Deadline to leave was set by Russians a number of times, but civilians would not agree. Layered isolation and starving of the city was carried out. They starved the city of vital supplies, separated civilians from the fighting elements as the time went by, and did not care for the civilians in the final assault, which is understandable. Captured from direction of the open area rather than hills, secured airport in the initial stages, carried out intense RT and aerial bombardment for the built-up areas, and then inducted the infantry which was used innovatively. Did not use the tanks and APCs in the initial stages, they were used post infantry had captured the area to sanitize the area. Used fuel area explosives, cluster bombs, rockets, thermobaric weapons, especially in the tunnels and underground sewers. They used to send the recce teams. Recce team used to draw fire and then used to withdraw. Once identification of enemy in a position was carried out, they used to raise it to ground by artillery fire. The overall aim of Russians was to wear down the opposition. They had mined the escape routes and in the end killed all main operatives so as not to allow the for future resurgence. And the most amazing thing about Russian army is that most of the ground level actions are carried out by generals themselves. Now in this diagram, I have tried to show you how Russians went about capturing Grozny. You can see the outer circles here, which is showing the isolating positions of major Russian forces. The gaps were patrolled. Thereafter, they went and established a firm base, captured the airport area, which is shaded blue.
In the second phase, they captured center of the city. They suffered heavily in between when they captured the center of the city. Even after capturing, there were ambushes. In the third phase,
In the end, I'll just leave you with the thought how modern weaponry is changing the war. Just look at this precision strike by Russian missile system with the help of the drone, which has observed multiple rocket launcher system moving from one place to another because rocket launchers are supposed to be easily found by direction finding equipment, so they keep changing their location. In this case, it has changed location, but drone was observing and it did manage to send the right coordinates to this missile and the target was destroyed.